Okay, today we're going to work on Chapter 6. Now, we should have done this in class already, so this is more of a refresher for you, I hope. And we're going to make the top version, which is our start file, look like the end version down here. Now you can see my character work there, my cursor. Okay, so we will close this one, or we'll just put this up with this one. We'll go back to Arrange and do Consolidate. There we go. And I'll hit Command 0. And I'm going to work a little bit faster here. Currently I'm doing this in spring 2014 and doing this on week 3. And so I'm going to kind of be babying you guys less with the keyboard shortcuts. But as long as you can see what's going on and you can back up and take a look at what I'm doing, then everything should be cool. Okay, this brush is a little bit small. And I'm just got this set to the wrong thing. There we go. And I'm just going to quickly grab most of his hair here and grab his shirt and grab this section back there and make the selection on his nose and get a little bit closer on his face, a little bit smaller with the brush. And that does a pretty good job there. Okay, and now we'll go to the Refine Edge tool. And as we did in class, we're going to set this for black. And I'll just quickly demonstrate some of the things we can do here. There we go. If we crank this up all the way, you can see how loose you can make this mask around his head. But like we did in class, we're going to set this all back to zeros. And we're going to set up the decontaminate colors, but first we're going to set up a few things here, mostly on his head. So I'm going to zoom in a bit. Actually, I prefer starting up here. And using this tool here called Refine Radius, and helps us get rid of the background, but also helps bring in a little bit of the wispy hairness that this guy has on his head. Okay, and I'm going to go down the front of his face here. You can see that the skin here is a little mottled, M-O-T-T-L-E-D. So I'm going to make my brush a little bit smaller and just sort of clean up this edge detail here. And that does a pretty nice job. And maybe come around the front of the glasses a bit. And that's a bit too much. I'm going to undo that. I'll leave that. And we're just going to focus on the skin. Looks good so far. Coming around the front of his lip down towards the chin. Looking good. And I'm actually going to purposefully kind of goof this up right over here. At least I thought I was. Actually, you can see right there, it got a little bit transparent there. I'll make this just a little bit larger. And it makes that skin transparent. So I just wanted to refresh you that when you want to erase the changes you've just done, you just got to go over here and change this tool, and it puts the skin tone right back. And again, with a smaller brush, down around here. And then finish up right there. Okay, it looks decent. Then we need to work on the back of his head. So I'll get a slightly bigger brush just to kind of take the edge off the halo over here. And it gets a little soft there. Remember, I don't want to really click in the, well, it gets a little too soft there. And down here, by the way, I can also change my tool here. If I hold the option bar, it changes to erase refinements, the option key, just to see the edge of this shirt a little bit more. I think we can see that. Round it off just a little bit. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this. We've already hit the decontaminate colors so that we now see new layer with layer mask, and click OK. So of course we get the layer mask going on here, which is great. And I might just go down here. Actually, I'm going to turn on my background just for a moment here, and you can see if there's any halo, which we still have a little bit. I'm going to clean up this a little bit by clicking in the layer mask and using my brush tool and making my brush a little bit smaller to paint in a little bit of visibility on the curve of this collar. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to change this, that's letter X by the way, to switch that back and forth. And just going to paint a little bit of invisibility going on here. Get a little bit smeary with the white towards the end of this hair here. And I just want to kind of clean that up just a little bit. Remember, layer mask, vitally important, and this is all about visibility. Where it's white, it's visible. Where it's black, it's invisible for what it represents on the screen. Okay, so he's looking great. Okay, next step is we're going to change the color of his glasses. And in class I said I want you to do a particularly crummy job of selecting this guy's glasses. So we're going to do kind of a crummy job here just so we can demonstrate how this works. Now that's actually a pretty good job. Now it got into the eye here, which is not great. By the way, we should also select the proper layer thumbnail. Okay, this is not as crummy as I typically like to do, but I'm just doing this for demonstration. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, I'm going to turn on the quick mask. Now, in the class, I find it better to use just the letter Q, but this is the button for it right here. Now, we've got what I consider a pretty bad mask here. I mean, the skin tone is red, the glasses are red. It's kind of hard to see. So before I even paint anything for the selection, I'm going to change this color to something obnoxious and green and click OK. Now I hit Q again, and now I can use my paintbrush. Black, of course, means masked out. White means selection. So, like I do with most of my brushings, I start off with a large brush and then generally work down to a smaller brush the more details we get in here. You can kind of see what's going on. You can kind of see some background with the orange there. Well, I'm just going to paint this out because I don't need that lens anyway. Actually, it's a little hard to see with my mask so that you can see my brush move. I'm going to turn this off. I think you can still see my brush move around here. And work a little bit smaller. Again, my goal here is to mask out the lens because we're not going to change that color. We just want to mask out, or we want to keep, sorry, the plastic frame and the stem of the lens, or the stem is this thing over there. Okay, I'm going to clean up a little bit over here with going back to white and just kind of click on this edge. Again, black. I see a little bit of background orange there, and that cleans up pretty nicely as long as I take my time. I'm getting a little bit too much of my background here, so I'm going to paint a little bit of this hair out. Actually, come to think of it, I can just paint all of this out because I'm not going to change the eyebrow or the skin at all. So this goes. Okay, and the eye, of course, I don't need. I'll make my brush a little bit smaller. There's a little bit of detail in there that I don't need. There, that's nice. And I like to go back and forth between marching ants and the quick mask. I could get a little bit smoother up at the top of that stem, and then we're going to work our way back into the hairline a little bit. I could work a little bit more down into this area down here. So this goes white, just a little bit. Make a little bit smaller as it comes around the foreground of the frame. And just as a refresher, you know, this whole quick mask thing is really about just refining your selection in a way that your typical marching ant base tool couldn't do. So right about there is nice. Okay, let's focus on this section over here. Again, let's marching ant and flip this just a little bit. Okay, that's nice. Now, what we did in class to get this stem is really we just painted some black just to paint out the hairs. We're not changing the color of the hairs. So let's see what this looks like. So we'll go back to marching ants. And well, here's the thing also. We don't have to be terribly great at this, because if there's a little bit of color in that hair, well, we have to make sure we select the hair so that deselect the hair. We want to mask out the hair just so we don't colorize it accidentally. But the real truth of the matter is that if this hair had no color at all, we actually can't change the color. It actually works out. We might want to paint some selection back here where we see any bit of the stem back over here. So just a tiny bit here and here, and maybe a tiny bit there. My brush could be a little bit smaller. So just to pick up a little bit of plastic that's there that might still have some red tone. Because remember, we can only change color if it actually has color. If it has tone, anything from black through grayscale through white, it's really not going to pick up anything. I'm going to call this okay. This is decent. And remember, Photoshop is very forgiving, so we can always go back and change a little bit of this in layer mask when we figure this out with our adjustment layer. We're going to add an adjustment layer over here. This is going to be the hue and saturation. Okay, and as you can see, the effect was applied here in a layer, and there really is a layer mask there that's showing where this stem is. So all I'm going to do is just shift the color, and I'm just going to move it into the green zone, and that does a pretty good job. I think we could go maybe a little bit farther back on the stem, and like I said before, Photoshop is very forgiving, so we can go back here a little bit. I'm going to zoom in. It's a little tight. I'm going to turn off the mask, the pixel grid, that is. There we go. And use my paintbrush using white and paint a little bit into this zone. So let's see if I can get a little something here. I'm going to make my brush a little bit bigger here. And now it's actually painting some of the hair. Actually, it's not painting some of the hair because the hair is grayscale. And you can see the stems of the glasses are still a little green, and that's what we're doing. And eventually it kind of eases up, and then even though we're painting back here, it really doesn't show the green anymore. So it actually works out. Let's zoom out a little bit. And at this distance, it looks like it's just hair with glasses fading into kind of a gray stem back there. And that's what we want. So that's awesome. Okay, next step is we're going to tilt his head back, and what you'll find is that, well, the effect, if we tilt the head on this layer here, it won't change the effect. The actual glasses would stay there, which is kind of weird. Well, I'll just demonstrate it to you. Let's do it this way. So we were going to do puppet warp, puts the mesh on there, And then I'm going to quickly drop some anchor points. Well, actually, these are called push pins. And I'm going to drop roughly 14 along the perimeter of the shirt. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, 13. Okay, you know what? I can't live with it. It's got to be 14. There we go. Okay, so now let's say that I tilt. I put that as my center of rotation. And now when I rotate, now the book says go to about 135 degrees. And here's the problem. Look, the effect is still applied back there where his head was. It's not where it is. Okay, so we're going to cancel out of this. And we're going to merge these layers together. The hue and saturation and Long Duck Dong is what I've called him. And merge down is the one that does that. So now that color change belongs on that layer specifically. We have damaged pixels, but that doesn't happen too terribly often. And we'll do that whole trick again. Sorry, edit menu, puppet warp, and we'll lay down the points again. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, so I'm a little OCD about that stuff. Okay, now we're going to hold down the Option key or Alt key on the Windows, bring this up to about 135 degrees. And right about there. You can see that I did it actually at 136 up here. I'll click OK. He looks great. And we will now go ahead and create a shadow. So I'll put a new one above layer 0, and I'll call this one shadow. Okay. And first I'm going to get a marching ant on him. So I'm going to hold down the Command key, Control key on the Windows, which of course puts marching ants around him. And now with this layer selected, I'm just going to fill with my background color. So I'm going to hold down Command Delete. That fills that area back there. So I'll turn off the front layer, and I'll deselect my marching ants, Command D. And then now we're just going to take this guy and, well, I'm going to hit Command T for transform, and I'm going to rotate, about 15 degrees. And I will click on the pixels and just move that forward and hit enter to commit my change. Looks nice. Let's reduce the opacity down to about 30%, which looks great. I'm still going to, I don't even think the book says this, but I'm going to blur this shadow just a little bit. So Gaussian blur, one of my favorites. And to see what I'm doing, I can always click there, and I will increase the radius to roughly 10 pixels. Of course, I can always just type it into.